weekly watch list. This is Jeff Kohler, aka Option Addict, from over at www.tradingaddicts.com. In kind of a late start this evening, as I'm just getting back from my weekend festivities. But let's talk about stocks, huh? As we get ready to kick off a holiday-shortened week, the S&P's at an interesting spot. Good price action on Friday. You know, we've seen a pretty good repeatable pattern. If you look through the last several days here, of dip buying going on. Now, I still think we're in a pretty interesting spot for a couple of reasons. Number one, I've been paying really close attention to the 30-minute chart here, and technically, we got outside of this channel here of lower prices. That's been setting up for quite a while. But if you look at this, we haven't exactly done a great job in the S&P of getting above 1080, which I think is a pretty important spot. If we can open up and get above 1080 and that all goes well here coming out of the gates here Tuesday morning, then I feel a lot more comfortable of continuing to look to buy stocks. The one thing I don't like where we've seen just kind of a real limp rally here to the upside of this channel. Again, 1080, I'd like to see prices get above that, but as we've started to tick higher here, the McClellan, which you guys know I've been talking a lot about this lately, has climbed up out of oversold territory. So we started off with that beautiful bullish divergence, and we've crept into just kind of the mean, the zero line here of the McClellan, which, as it stands, tells us that we have equal risk of stocks going up versus stocks going down. It's there's really just equal risk. So with that, and being at this spot, I'd love to see that McClellan tick higher. I know we've got a lot of people itching to short stocks, and I continue to say that this isn't a great spot. But if we do set up, if we can break 1080, and that happens, we get a little bit of follow through, then 1100 is kind of what I'm thinking. And at that time, you'll probably see this McClellan get up into a positive reading of plus 40, give or take. And at that point, I think it makes much more sense to lay down a couple of put positions, short a couple of stocks, take on a more balanced approach. So, I don't know, coming into tomorrow, I'd like to see stocks take out 1080. If that happens, continue to buy. I mean, I'm net long as it is. But I think tomorrow's price action, if we can get above that level, continue buying all the way up to about 1100. And from there, by the time we get there, I think it makes sense to take on a more diverse approach, which means you can short a couple of stocks. After going through a kind of a long list of stocks this evening, I've spent the last couple hours just going through watch lists, running some scans. We're still in the spot to where I don't see a lot of good-looking patterns setting up. I mean, those are still pretty few and far between. But I do have a kick-ass list of stocks, whether it's $10 darlings or dip buying opportunities or stocks you consider selling the rip in. I've got it all here tonight, folks, so kick back and let me throw a few symbols at you. All right, now let's get on into the price pattern setups. I've had to kind of stretch myself here to try to find good things, but here's what I'm watching. The home builders, right? I continue to talk about these home builders and the price patterns. You'll have to look at these on long dated charts, but take Ryland here for example. You can see this little triangle pattern setting up, and we're pretty far away. I initially started stalking these stocks down here at the lower end of this range, and they've been holding up so well. Now I think a stock like Ryland has got to get to 25. Maybe it doesn't break out here, but it at least has to get there. And whether that's Ryland or DR Horton, which I think if you look at this, you can see the same ascending triangle, but if you look at this over a 2-year chart, you can see a much bigger consolidation pattern where prices are just starting to try to get outside of there. Toll Brothers, you can look at this on about a 6-month chart. It's not looking too bad here. It's trying to break out of this range. So those are the ones that I'm watching in terms of home builders. Frontier Communications has been coiling up here for a little while. I think it makes sense to look at this one, especially if it starts to get ready to pop, if prices start to get outside of this range, which has got to happen here sooner than later. ALY, look at this one at a 1 year. It doesn't look too bad. It's starting to perk up down off that 200-day moving average. So I kind of like the spot. If you can anticipate a bigger pattern like this and get it towards the lower end of this range, I think that's a wonderful spot. Old Steve Madden doesn't look too bad here. Here's the setup, right? It hasn't broken out quite yet, but it looks like it's going to. I issued an alert for this riverbed early last week. In fact, it was on Monday. And the stock's finally breaking out here today. I think if you get an opportunity to buy this one on a pullback, get it back towards 25. I think you buy the dip in something like this. But there's the triangle breakout that happened here on Friday. INCY. I don't know. I kind of like what this one's doing. Broke outside of this little pennant, this little triangle, whatever you want to call it. It's popping. Looks good. Had to go small cap on this one. And you might even have to go on a 3-month chart to really see what's happening here. There it is. 30-minute chart might not look too bad either. Anyway, wonderful reversal there on Friday. And waiting for volume to step it up just a little bit more. And prices to get up here a little bit closer to 5. And I think you got to buy this one. Here's another little cheap stock. CPHD. And there's what I'm looking at. Volume really kicked up here on Friday. Got towards the upper end of this range, but I don't know, a little bit higher from here. Get a little closer to 1575. I think that's where you buy it. So those are my price patterns, guys. Like I said, I mean, there's not a whole lot out there. I mean, that's been the case with stocks off as much as they have been over the last month or so. Not a lot of patterns setting up, but the setups are starting to come back. As I went out there and started looking around, there was a lot to choose from. As you can see, my lists are pretty deep. The small cap setups are there. So I don't know. Like I said, I get back to the S&P and get prices up over 1080, get up to 1100. We ought to see a little bit more follow through from there. So I think it all hinges on what we do tomorrow morning. So with that, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it quits. This has been the Option Addict. That's been my watch list. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.
No matter how hard you try, you can't stop us now. No matter how hard you try, you can't stop us now.